Good morning and welcome to our event and our webinar today. It's 23rd of February. I'm Andy Banks from VentureForge, and thank you very much so far to 47 people that have joined us. Today looks set to be probably our biggest ever webinar. I think first of all, thanks to my team who've done a great job of pulling this together, and thanks in advance to James and Nick who are going to join us and share their expertise on things. Just also waiting for a few more people to get into the room. I will get the inevitable introductions out of the way and share just a little bit about what we're going to go through today and what today is all about. As you can see already, today is all about where does Amazon sit as part of your e-commerce strategy. Thankfully for you all, that's not just me talking at you for the next hour. We've got some fantastic guys joining me today. We've got Nick Jones, who is on the line, who's a freelance consultant. Nick comes from a really good broad experience and background of working both in-house and in agencies and working with a really good broad spectrum of brands. So his experience is coming from kind of the real world, been there, done it, bought the t-shirt side of things. And we've got James Ewens joining us today as well from Furniture Box. And we're going to take things a little bit different with James to what we normally do. Instead of doing a presentation, we're actually going to do a bit of a Q&A with James one-on-one about what it feels like and what it is like to be running a multi-channel brand with Amazon in the mix and where Amazon sits as part of Furniture Box's e-commerce strategy. I'll make no apologies for the inevitable sales pitch and an introduction to our business, but I promise you this is just 2 slides. As a very quick introduction to VentureForge, for those that don't know, we're an Amazon marketing agency and we help brands build their sales on Amazon across the UK, Europe and beyond. And we do that with a fully managed service that covers everything from account creation all the way through setting up, building, running, trading, and successfully running the Amazon business on behalf of our clients. We also do that in a dovetailed way. So it's not just a fully outsourced service, but we can also work with internal teams and help them build their own Amazon expertise and build the business in conjunction with them rather than for them. And the thing we're kind of proudest about is the way we operate as a business. We're very, very much a commercial partner for the brands that we work with. So whilst what we do is all about building an Amazon business, for us, it's really about those 4 pillars there. It's about having a really good strategy, really kind of deep focus on profitable return and helping drive brands through their brand acceleration and sales growth. But as I said today, that is literally your sales pitch. If you do want to find out more about VentureForge, by all means, please do reach out and have a chat with us. But today is not about us trying to sell to you. It's about sharing, hopefully, some good insight and some good knowledge into what role Amazon does play in an e-commerce strategy. So without further ado, let's make a start there and start to delve into some thoughts. I think when you think about what Amazon can do for a brand, I want to start off with a few perceptions. What do people think it can do for a brand? There's a whole number of things that from the clients that we speak to, that's clients we work with and clients that come to us looking at what we can do with them. You know, a few things kind of stand out. People always believe that Amazon can drive sales growth. They always see it can drive profit growth. Might help brands trade direct if they're more of a B2B business. It might help brands grow their market share, might help them take control of their brand a little bit more, give them opportunities for international expansion. For younger brands, more startup brands, it might help them build trust when they're brand new to a market. But it can help brands get market insight, what does and doesn't work in particular channels, in particular territories, and in particular categories. I don't think there's anything there that is particularly surprising to anybody who's spent a bit of time looking at Amazon. I think what's equally not surprising is maybe some of that negative stuff and some of the things that people often believe Amazon could do for their brand, but from a negative perception. I think we often hear people thinking that Amazon can devalue a brand, that it can cannibalize their sales from maybe their website or their stores or their other digital customers, might help drive prices down, and as a result might reduce profit, or because of Amazon's fee stack might drive profit down. But I think what we often see when we kind of delve into these is that's more through a lack of understanding or strategy as to how to do Amazon. And as hopefully you'll start to see as we go through some of the next kind of few slides quite quickly, you'll see that actually most of those can be overcome if you tackle Amazon in the right way. But before I start to go on and talk about what role Amazon can play in an e-commerce strategy, I just want to start with a bit of very quick guidance to kind of maybe think about before you delve into the detail of this. I think for us as a business and me as a person, I always like to let strategy set the direction, and I always kind of have a why, if, how kind of mindset. And bringing this into the context of the conversation, we always say, look at all the reasons why you might want to do Amazon, and equally all the reasons why you might not want to do Amazon. And then once you've got all of that out on the table, then start to consider all the facts and all the options to work out if you could or if you should do Amazon. And once you've got all of that, only then can you really move on to decide how you can do Amazon. I think you need that kind of funnel approach of why you could or shouldn't do Amazon as a channel, taking all the facts in to work out, or with all that in mind, if you should do it or if you shouldn't do it. And then you can start to break that down into a strategy and look at how you could go about Amazon and make it work for your business and what role it might play. I think this is a really, really valid question to ask. I think the title of today's webinar is probably quite leading. It's where does Amazon sit as part of your e-commerce strategy? But that doesn't mean Amazon has to sit as part of your e-commerce strategy at all. We've got quite a few prospective clients we've spoken to who've been curious about Amazon, but they then go on to say, look, Amazon doesn't have a role to play for us as a business. And that's perfectly valid. Amazon doesn't have to be a part of your e-commerce strategy. Or perhaps it does, but strategically the decision is not to do it. And there's plenty of valid reasons not to do that. I think the only valid reason though we've ever heard when we've delved into this in detail and really kind of prodded and probed at things is probably the threat of cannibalization. And for me, that only really applies to very, very large, very mature brands. I maybe throw the Adidas and the Nikes of this world into this conversation. Yes, they may be on Amazon, but that's that level of brand where actually cannibalization becomes a threat. I'm moving sales from one channel to another rather than really growing sales. But when you delve down into the kind of challenger, the more mid-market brands, that really isn't a genuine reason not to do Amazon, and the strategy can work its way around that. And as I say, we've normally found that most reasons not to do Amazon can usually be challenged and overcome with the right knowledge and the right strategy. I think most important for me, we've always found there are many, many more reasons to do Amazon rather than not to do it, but that's particularly relevant if you get the strategy right. I think one of the things we always ask anybody looking at what role Amazon can play is, as a business, be really open-minded, remain curious and ask questions rather than assuming Amazon doesn't have a role to play or it's got a very narrow or a very specific role to play. Let's kind of raise the thinking a little bit and start at a much higher level and just remain curious as to what Amazon could do for a business, and equally curious as to what it couldn't do for a business as well. We always say start with data, and by that I don't mean Amazon data, but start with market and economic data. Try to fully understand what Amazon is, and I'll come on to a little bit of that in a few slides' time. Try to fully understand your market and your place within it. Try to fully understand your own channels and the roles that those channels play in your business. And also try to fully understand your competition. And in that, I'd bring Amazon really deep into that conversation. Lots of brands look at their competition and they look at their traditional competition. There's a really good example of a brand that we spoke to in a electrical category. They were the market leader when you went into traditional sales channels. And when we highlighted to them who we saw their competition being on Amazon, they'd never heard of the brands that were competing against them. They'd not paid attention to the Amazon competition that was starting to ultimately erode their sales in digital sales channels. So when we say look at the competition, it's not just where your traditional, usual competitors selling, what are they up to? It's who is that Amazon specific competition? And most times you'll find brands there that you've never heard of, never come across, and that are doing things that you weren't even aware of. I think with all that in mind, you've got to then start to pull some context together. What does all of that information mean? What questions does it start to raise to you as a business? What opportunities does it start to open up? And equally, what kind of threats can you see once you've got all of that Amazon market, competitor, and channel context together? And only once you've got all of that together can you start to move to decision. What can you do with all of that data? What can you do with all that insight? And what can you do with Amazon as a sales channel, if anything, within your business? I said context was key, and I think I'll just start off here with a bit of quick data about Amazon and probably a quick comparison to put some of this into some real context. Amazon is the world's largest retail outlet by revenue. That was kind of circa 400 billion of retail revenue in their last reported accounts. So quite clearly there was huge scale and a huge volume opportunity for brands that are considering Amazon as part of their e-commerce strategy. They're active in upwards of 17 countries across the world, in markets that some people won't even be aware of. And this is constantly expanding, constantly moving. And every time we or any Amazon seller gets an update from Amazon, you're normally seeing 2, 3, 4 more markets open up each year. Some of those are more niche, some of those are quite big strategic markets, but they are bringing huge international scale to the brands that are selling for Amazon. They've got over 300 million active customers. So again, huge scale there. But within those 300 million active customers, 200 million of those customers are on Prime. So they've got a huge cohort of highly loyal, regular spenders with huge trust in their platform. I said comparison is useful and context is really important here. I've just picked 2 UK retailers. I sense we've got a UK kind of dominant audience on the webinar today. And if you look at a couple of key retailers that a lot of our customers sell through, Argos and Very, 2 of the UK's largest high street and multi-channel retailers, if you put those 2 businesses together, their combined turnover only represents less than 2% of what Amazon offers. They're only focused in one country, and they have less than 3.5% of Amazon's active customer base. When we speak to a lot of our customers and our prospects, they're often really keen to do deals with people like Argos and Very, but afraid of Amazon for various reasons. But when you look at the level of scale, the sheer size of the opportunity, Amazon knocks most retailers out of the park and presents a really good opportunity for brands to scale. I think moving on with a bit more context, the stat there was quite astounding when we came across that a few years back. Customers today don't start a search for a product-based search on a search engine. They start that search on Amazon. When customers have got a high buying intent, they turn to Amazon and start to drive their product search on that platform. It's really interesting when you talk to brands about their e-commerce strategy, though, because very few brands will actually challenge whether they should have an SEO strategy. But lots of brands still challenge whether they should have an Amazon strategy and should have a role to play on Amazon. And again, when we talk to brands, we often see the brand investment into Amazon is typically less than half of what a brand is willing to invest in SEO. But when you look at that stat there, it does start to beg the question of why is there not that level of investment and why is there not that level of focus for brands on Amazon? Because that's where consumers today search for products. When you look at what the other 44% do, this was a huge eye-opener for us. And actually one of the reasons why we started an Amazon agency, going back to 3 to 4 years ago, across every category that we've analysed, with the exception of 2, and that would be kids' footwear and it was homeware, Amazon has absolute market dominance within the UK. And I was going to show you 2 examples just to kind of bring that point home. When you look at the UK gifts market share, when a consumer goes onto Google and searches for the broadest, the most popular set of keywords related to gifts in the UK market, this is where the consumer goes to after searching on Google. And in this market, north of 30% of people go to Amazon. When you then look at toys, that's in the 17, 18% kind of region. So you've got 56% of consumers starting a search on Amazon, 44% search on a search engine, and across all the data we analysed, on average, 12% of those people then go to Amazon following that search. How many of them buy is a different question, and getting to that data is particularly challenging, but we see across our client base an average of a 10 to 15% conversion rate when a customer is on Amazon. So the pure sales opportunity there for brands is absolutely significant. I think before I was going to talk about what role Amazon can play in some quick fire points across different types of businesses, the final bit of context I wanted to bring to this conversation is Amazon Europe and Amazon's international business. Amazon Europe is Amazon's second biggest market, generating 51 billion euros of sales in 2021. And for brands, Amazon presents not just a scale and a volume opportunity and a customer opportunity, but also a really good opportunity to launch or expand a business internationally. I know that's something that James in particular has been looking at in his business and the role of Amazon there in doing that. But Amazon International is a significant international opportunity for brands, and it's only expanding. Europe used to have 5 markets and is now 9 and counting. You don't need to sell in the UK to sell on those markets in Amazon. You can create a French-specific Amazon business, an Egypt-specific Amazon business, a North American-specific Amazon business, even if Amazon UK isn't a part of your Amazon strategy. So Amazon can be a really good launch pad for international expansion, international testing, without the need for having in-market operations or in-market expertise, none of the usual worries about opening DCs, handling payments. You can use Amazon as that test bed to take your brand into international markets. Very conscious of time, and obviously the people have got lots of great stuff to share on today's call. So I'm going to very quickly rattle through what role could Amazon play for different types of businesses. Again, we've probably got different people in the audience today that are coming from different types of organizations. I'm going to try and pull out 10 highlights of the role that Amazon can play for each of these types of organizations. So for a B2C brand, a brand that is used to selling direct to consumer, what could Amazon do? And this isn't an exhaustive list, it's just some examples. It could drive incremental sales. It could help you drive market share growth. It could help you drive new to brand customer acquisition, people that weren't aware of your brand in the past because your own marketing channels might be relatively limited, or you're in a niche. It can drive incremental revenue, incremental profit. It can help you drive brand protection, and particularly around that, it can help you protect against resellers, which can ultimately be brand damaging. So lots of our direct consumer brands see Amazon as a way of taking control and owning that channel before resellers can enter into that market. It can offer a really good opportunity for international expansion. So B2C brands that are focused just in one market can very quickly sidestep into international markets and check and test how well their products respond in that market, and whether it's then worth putting the B2C offer in there or the D2C offer in there as a follow-up. It can also help really drive new product development and testing. Does a new product land in a market well? Does the consumer respond with new products? And it can also help drive new product development, research, and insight. The amount of data that a D2C brand can take from Amazon is phenomenal. You can understand who's selling what, in what volume, in what category, and start to develop new product ranges just based on that insight. I did say this is going to be a very quick kind of run through. What can Amazon do for startup and scale-up brands? For me, the biggest thing here is latent demand. Amazon has got 56% of people starting their search on there, people that have got high buying intent and are looking for products. For startup and scale-up brands, immediately looking for sales, volume, and growth, that's a great opportunity for them to drive. The second point, which is just pure sales in that channel. Third point for me here is cash generation. The ability for somebody to drive sales on Amazon, see that fortnightly payout from the Amazon sales, and start to drive cash into a startup business. Amazon can be a really good driver of cash generation once you've got that initial momentum underway. It can be great for brand awareness. It can be great for customer acquisition, fantastic for market and customer insight for startup brands who may be limited on that in their own channels due to a lack of volume. Again, international expansion here for startup brands is great. And it can be really good for proof of concept validation. For a brand who's got a great product idea, but not necessarily the desire, expertise, or capability to go direct to consumer, you can prove a product very quickly in Amazon due to that latent demand. It gives brands a level-ish playing field compared to some of the big brands. And I go back to that electrical example I gave, where the big brand in that market had been wiped out by lots of really small brands that had just played a very good Amazon game to get their product to market. So it can help these young brands really take on some of the big brands and get their products moving and give them a bit of an unfair advantage. And perhaps a bit of a niche opportunity, but it can also help drive working capital by once you've got that sales momentum building, Amazon will actually offer Amazon lending to help you fund and drive the growth of your business and pay that back from the proceeds of the sales that you're generating in the channel. So a really good opportunity for startup and scale-up brands. What about mature brands? I think for me here, this is all about incremental sales. That's by far the biggest opportunity and role that Amazon can play in their strategy. But I think here you've got to be a bit more strategic about it. I think Nick's got some really good points in his presentation about kind of how you think about the products that you put into each channel, and is there a need for unique or different products in each channel. I think mature brands need to think about incremental sales a little bit smarter, but Amazon absolutely can drive that for brands. It can also help drive rapid digitization. A lot of mature brands, particularly your traditional high street brands, struggle to digitize and struggle to adapt quickly, and Amazon can give them a ready-made sales channel that allows them to digitize quicker than they might be able to do with their own teams and own capability. It can drive new customer acquisition. It can help really give them some brand protection, price protection, margin protection. I think here is a really good case for brands needing to bring Amazon into their e-commerce strategy to look at how they can manage resellers and protect the brand on the long term. It can help drive great market and customer insights. Again, international expansion for these brands is a really good use of Amazon within their strategy. And it can also drive rapid testing of new initiatives, be that markets, products, or different approaches. For B2B brands, I think Amazon gives a really good low barrier entry to move towards D2C. We saw a huge amount of this over COVID, where manufacturers' traditional sales channels were closed for weeks and weeks at a time, and Amazon allowed these brands to get close to the consumer and open sales back up without having to change from being a manufacturing business to being a direct consumer business, which culturally is just a huge, huge leap. It can help these brands mitigate the risk in their traditional B2B sales channels, and there's lots of that around at the moment with retailers closing the doors and all the challenges on the high streets. It can help give them customer diversification and allow them to sell to thousands of customers, not just a handful of customers placing bulk orders. There's, of course, the Amazon B2B opportunity and Amazon Business, where businesses can now buy on invoicing terms through Amazon at preferential rates. It can help drive deeper margins. So rather than selling B2B, they can sell B2C. And even with Amazon's fee stack in the middle, they can take a much better margin position. Allow them to manage their resellers and take control of how they sell or how their product is represented on Amazon, which gives them much more benefit across their other sales channels as well. And importantly here, Amazon is wanting to work with brands directly. I'll touch on this more on my penultimate slide, but Amazon is making a sea change and wanting to move more to working with B2B brands than retailers. I think my final couple of points on this is driving sales revenue and, of course, brand protection. Now, I'm always one for being positive and looking at the positive role that Amazon can give in any business's e-commerce strategy, but I think I've just got to be really kind of candid. But when you start to think about what role Amazon can play for retailers, and by retailers I mean people that just truly sell other brands' products, I think I'm struggling here to really pull out a long-term positive role that Amazon can play there, and that's not me being downbeat on it. But when you look at the role that a retailer can add on Amazon, they actually add very little value. The brand has created the product. Typically, the brand creates the imagery. The retailer may be doing the listing, but the only real lever that a retailer has to pull is one of price. And when they're competing against many other retailers to sell that same product, that price lever just drives price down and down and down. That puts margin pressure on every retailer. That ultimately puts margin pressure on the ultimate manufacturer or brand in the background. And it doesn't drive good business for anybody. I mean, it's actually at the heart of what Amazon are trying to do as a business, which is driving really good consumer value. But over the last 2 years, in particular, really clear signal in the last couple of weeks, Amazon want to work with brands now, not resellers. And we saw this in an announcement last week where Amazon on the vendor model are moving direct to work with the brands and proactively closing the accounts of resellers. So I think for me, the future doesn't look particularly positive for retailers on Amazon. And if we've got anybody in the audience today that is a retailer, I think you're the group of people that I would be saying is you've really got a big question to ask here as to what long-term role does Amazon have to play in your strategy. I'm certainly not saying there is one, but I am saying there's a much bigger question to ask here for brands that are in that position. Near there, we've got 2 more slides to go before I hand over to Nick. I think going right back to the kind of crux of the whole conversation today, what is the role of Amazon for brands? I haven't got an answer to that. I don't think anybody has, but hopefully what's come over in the last few slides is that Amazon can have a role for almost all brands. The reality is it's probably far from just selling stuff. That is really not the role of Amazon. The real answer to what role Amazon has in your e-commerce strategy comes down to your brand, your business, your context, your market, and how you can create an opportunity to use Amazon as part of your e-commerce strategy, given all the things that we've talked through so far this morning. I think for me, that absolutely summarizes it. Amazon almost always, I use the word almost deliberately there, presents a really good opportunity for brands in many, many ways. And the key here is with the right thinking and strategy, you can drive sales and brand growth for almost any business, but you've got to get down into the weeds and down into the detail to work out exactly how it can work and add value for your business. Hopefully you found that useful. I think without further ado, and conscious that Nick is already sat there with a timer, ready to kind of make sure he keeps on track after I've gone massively off-piste and pinched a bit of his time, I'm going to kill my share and hand over to Nick Jones. Over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Andy. I will just get my share up and running as I have far too many windows open as usual. So very, very quickly, thanks for that, Andy. There were some interesting points in there that I may be able to answer. I may not. So just a quick bit about me. I've been in the industry well over 20 years now. I've been building, managing websites, creating strategies for e-commerce brands. I've worked with clients from Aldi Next to smaller companies like Sinks and Taps, HL Brands, jewelers, local jewelers in Sheffield. I've set up Fulfilled by Amazon for several companies. I've worked in the UK. Like Andy says, we can expand into the US purely through Amazon. Did it in Germany for a brand. I'm currently an independent consultant. I can help smaller businesses. These are some of the brands I've managed. I've actually put my money where my mouth is. I now actually own 4Sport Recovery and 4Sport CBD. two brands that I'm hoping to take, not the CBD because you can't get that on Amazon, but the recovery brand we're going to try and get on onto Amazon. So I'm putting a strategy together and actually reading some of my notes. So if you want me, you can get me at nickjones.com. Just check the spelling, and LinkedIn. You can find me anywhere, basically. So where does Amazon sit as part of your ecom strategy was the question. But there's a question, or a lot of questions, to ask before I start selling on Amazon. Now, a lot of you have probably already done this, but it's interesting, and what Andy said is correct. What are my goals? What type of business am I? Am I a retailer? Am I a brand? Am I the manufacturer? How do I want to present my store? And I'll go on to that in a second as to how you can do that and why you might want to do that. What do I actually want to sell on Amazon? There are multiple different ways of doing this. And again, I've got all the examples that I've got in here are things that I've done personally. So they're all, I make no apology for them all being brands that I've worked with or worked for. And then at the end, you want to say, what would my strategy be? Because it's all about you as an individual or an individual brand or a company. You can't just say, oh, well, they're doing that, let's do the same. It's got to work for you. And the biggest thing to remember is Amazon is such a big marketplace, and there are lots and lots of products on there. So whilst it sounds fairly easy, I'll just put my products on, I'm a new business, I'll just stick them on and everyone will see them. Well, they won't, because Amazon SEO is actually a really difficult thing to get your head around. Completely different to Google SEO, completely different to everything else. So, there are lots of things that you need to consider. So why am I going to be on Amazon? Is it all about the money? Do I want to make money? Well, I've worked with people who said, no, I don't want to sell my products on Amazon because we have an affiliate-based model. We don't want to upset our affiliates. We want the sales to go through them. We don't want to drive people to Amazon. But actually, that same brand, we had to look at brand protection. It's actually a difficult slide to see this, but when I type Testafuel, which is one of the brands I worked with, into Google, and this was the other day, you can see the actual brand is in a shopping ad. The product image on Amazon is a completely different product, and the links were to a completely different product. So we decided to put our own product as the brand onto Amazon to protect us, so that our listing, the listing that came in the SERP, was actually ours, not to some other random product. We did speak to Amazon and say, can we take this down? They're not overly interested in that sort of thing. It's a lot of, as most people will know, it's a lot of chat. It's a lot of out of country people. It depends what time you try and speak to Amazon as to where you end up speaking to someone. You can increase your brand awareness as well. Another point that Andy made, you can add products to an established store. So I've worked with a store that, I'll come on to it in a sec, but it wasn't branded. We were actually selling as our brand, but through a what looked like an independent retailer store, and that just allowed us to play a little bit with price and to look like an independent. It also allowed us to launch new products and brands really quickly without having to set up another brand strand or another store or try and come across as a completely different thing. We just added all our new brands to an existing store. So we also want to look at where am I in the sales cycle? And by this, I mean, am I the manufacturer of the brand? Do I want to sell direct to customer? Do I want to, in a sense, cannibalize some of my direct to customer sales? And it will happen. It's not, Amazon as a channel. Yes, it can be additional sales, and it will do. It will drive additional sales, because as Andy says, when someone starts typing into Amazon, if they can't find your brand, or they may know who you are already, or if you don't appear, they're not going to buy your product. But that doesn't mean to say that they're immediately going to go to your website and buy it from there. They may buy something else. They may want it on Prime. They may want it tomorrow. They may want it this afternoon. So there are all sorts of considerations. Do I sell to major retailers? Again, brands that I've worked with have sold by the pallet load to, your Sainsbury's, your Tesco's, your Asda's. Do you want to cannibalize that? Do you want to upset them? So do I want to sell as an independent retailer, or do I sell to independent retailers? Again, another brand basically sold their products again to the major sheds, but with products being sold to independent retailers who actually took all the Amazon listings, all the good ones, and we supported them with content, with imagery, having the A+ content, but we didn't compete on price, because as Andy rightly says, it's just a race to the bottom. You're just, going to create just a loop where everybody tries to be 1p cheaper than everybody else. So if you stand back as the brand and go, that's the RRP, that's where we'll be, when everybody else has stopped fighting with themselves, we'll just take it at RRP. So manufacturers that I've worked with that sell direct only, Forsport, Alfresia, Vittini, those two brands are actually part of a bigger business. Raw Ambition supplements business, again, just sell direct, don't sell to any of the external retailers or independent retailers, and a couple of manufacturers who sell to retailers and independents. So again, if I'm a brand, I sell my own products, I want to own the listing. I may share the listings with anyone else. You can't stop people. Anybody can go on now, get a barcode, or find the product on Amazon and say that I sell it. Anybody can do that. It's very, very easy to do. But again, jumping into that and trying to sell cheaper than everybody else is just how some people make money on it. I've absolutely no idea. If I own the trademark, which you probably will for brands, you can create A+ content. This is one of the brands I worked with, Instant Knockout, which is on Amazon now. This is the A+ content. Again, we didn't use the brand Instant Knockout because we don't own the trademark for it, but we actually own the trademark for the parent company, which is Raw Ambition, which sells all the products. So we managed to get round that. We don't really own the trademark part with the A+ content. So there are all sorts of things you can do, and I'm going quite quickly through this. And if anyone's got any questions for me, sort of externally, you can get me wherever. So there is a Q&A at the end, and if I go really quickly, we might have time for some. Retailers, as Andy says, you sell multiple brands, you share the listings with other people. This is an example. This is a live example. Actually, I looked at it yesterday and there were 60 people selling this, but how 63 retailers can sell the same product and hope that you're going to choose theirs. If you don't have the buy box, you've got no chance. Now, the way around this, and there are examples, if you type Minky washing line or 30-meter reel into Amazon, you'll find all sorts. Like Amazon have bundled this with some pegs so that they can have a different listing to everybody else. So there are, if you are a retailer, there are other ways of doing things like bundles or selling a slightly different variation of the product. You can't, or you shouldn't anymore, be able to just create a new listing. This is not eBay. It's not, multiple listings for the same product. You shouldn't be able to add another one of these products onto Amazon. There are, I've spotted some, but generally speaking, you all share the listing, and there's 63 people trying to sell this at the same time is well, bonkers, basically. So how do I want to present my store? Do I want to be the manufacturer brand, or do I want to be anonymous? As the manufacturer brand, I can say buy direct from the manufacturer. I can add that rich A+ content, which I can for everybody else, but I can really own that, and I can also control who sells the products. I can do that through sales and tell them to stop selling it to the retailers. These are two brand stores on Amazon. The Minky one is interesting because Minky don't sell direct on Amazon. Anything that is a Minky product will be sold either from Amazon, either through the vendor system or through an anonymous store, which is owned by the company who owns Minky. Raw Ambition, on the other hand, that is their own store, and they do have all their own products, and that's all they sell. So it does give you that opportunity to really push your brand out there. But you can then be an anonymous store, hide who I am from other retailers, although if you know what you're looking for, you know what you'll find. It allows you to have pricing where you can price against the competition. We always used to do it with the Minky brand, and this is what they sell under. It's Home and Garden Direct. So there's Minky, Vittini, Alfresia, Fire Mountain are all brands under this store that are all owned by the same company that own Minky. But they decided they didn't want to sell as Minky because they didn't want to upset Sainsbury's, Tesco's, everybody else. But what it did allow them to do is be 1p dearer than Amazon, not push Amazon to push the price down through the vendor system, but be more expensive. And if Amazon ever ran out for whatever reason, you would take the sale as the independent store. Anyone who tries to price against Amazon vendor, it's an absolute race to the bottom. You've got no chance. As an anonymous store, I can still add that A+. I can still do what I want with the listings, but it just gets presented not as the brand, so it's not us. And I can sell whatever I want. We launched the Vittini brand, which is a kitchen electricals brand, through Home and Garden Direct. It was quicker. We'd already got however many thousand reviews on the store. We'd already got the ability to do FBA, so it didn't take as long to get the products into Amazon and use the Prime service. And it was a lot easier to do a lot of things because it was a multi-product, multi-brand store that nobody knew really who it was. The next question is, what do I want to sell? Am I going to sell all of my product range? Am I going to set up some Amazon exclusives? Am I going to do full brands dedicated to Amazon? This is an example that I'm quite happy with because it's still there. I created this board about 4 years ago. Just saw it's a flamingo board. We had some flamingo ironing board covers for a retailer that they decided they didn't want. So I asked if we could spray the boards pink because Minky make their own boards in Manchester. So we did, and this was an exclusive product, exclusively for the online store and on Amazon. There is only one seller. It is the anonymous Home and Garden Direct store. It's not Minky selling this. There is a link to the Visit the Minky store, which again is the storefront that shows Minky, but that's all the vendor side of things. It's all quite complicated, but you can start getting this picture. You've got to see what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? Full brands dedicated to Amazon. I've got a client who has decided that the brand is selling so well on Amazon that the direct-to-customer e-commerce store that they were going to build, they're not going to anymore. They're just going to dedicate that brand totally to Amazon. They're going to try and double their Amazon sales from a couple of million to 4 or 5 million. And they're going to actually start another brand that's direct to customer. So you can dedicate a whole brand or a whole line or individual products straight to Amazon. It could be the small part of the range. It could be products not taken by retailers. Again, the Arthouse wallpaper, the managers wanted us to put just products that weren't taken, or they were end of line, plenty of stock. People had obviously tried to order it and said, no, I don't want it anymore. Happens quite a lot. All the manufacturers retail out there know all this. If you've got enough stock, you can sell your end of line. But again, going back to the SEO point, it can be quite difficult. It can be quite time consuming to SEO some of these products and get them so that people can see them and start searching for your products. So it's got to be worth doing. So having gone through all that as quickly as I could, if I want to add Amazon as a channel, do I want to drive awareness of a product or brand? Do I want to drive sales? You may need advertising. You may need to sponsor products. You may want to offer Prime delivery by FBA. There's another brand I'm talking to want to increase their sales from 5% of the turnover to 20% of the turnover. No new products. They're going to have to advertise. There's no other way. And they don't even sell direct to customer. They're only doing it through vendor. So how they're going to do that is it's a challenge. Challenge accepted. But I think it's going to be a lot of advertising, sponsoring products, getting those products front of mind before anybody else. Do I want to drive awareness of the product and brand to drive sales to my website? So again, we've done this with the Alfresia brand. I put all the prices up quite a bit higher, not just to cover the extra fees you get on Amazon, but to actually get where the top selling, and it's still there, 4-burner gas barbecue. If you type that into Amazon, you will see a Fire Mountain gas barbecue. And what we did is we priced that quite a bit higher on Amazon than it was on the website. So nobody's heard of Fire Mountain, nobody's heard of Alfresia. Hopefully that drove, well, it did, because we saw it happen. It drove more traffic to the website. We got more sales from our own website than we did on Amazon. So there are ways and means of doing it. It's an interesting strategy, and it can work. And as Andy said, this is the biggest product search engine around. And as someone once said to me, if it's not on Amazon or eBay, does the product actually exist? So you can create new products that only I can sell on my store. I can create a new brand to sell on Amazon only, or I can sell as the brand and act like an independent retailer. Hopefully, a lot of you have already done all this, and you said, right, my strategy is I'm going to do this. So I'm going to sell these products. I'm going to be my own store. This is how I'm going to do it. Go. So how that fits within, you will know then how that already fits within your e-commerce strategy, because I want it as a sales channel, or I'm doing it to drive traffic to my own website, or I'm doing it just to protect my brand. All of these things, they don't have to be independent. They can all be part of what you do, and I'm going to be doing it. The 4Sport brand, we will do it for all of those things. Try and drive sales, hopefully drive traffic to the site, because people will go, who is this 4Sport? But also give us, if people type in 4Sport product, our website will appear, but you know what's going to happen is Amazon are going to appear, and you want your product to be that link, even if it's a more generic term, like a recovery supplement or whatever it is. You want that, if there's an Amazon listing in Google search, you want to be that listing. So you've got to put your product there so everyone can see it. And that is me done.
Well done, Nick. Brilliant there. Thank you very much for sharing all that. I think you've lots of commonality between what we've both spoken about. It kind of highlights to me there is kind of the focus on how you think about resellers, how you think about that cannibalization piece. A lot of what you're talking there for me is about distribution control and how you tackle that with having that exclusive product, the anonymous stores, the different ways in which you can pull an Amazon strategy out, regardless of kind of how challenging the situation may be. So really insightful there, Nick. I want to hold on questions for you for the time being. We're going to move, or we were going to move on to, he's back. James, don't do that to me.
Sorry. just testing.
Really patiently for the beginning part, and you disappeared just about to come to your section. So yeah, we're going to kind of move now onto James, and a bit different to what we normally do. I'm going to take some great pleasure in grilling James with a few questions before we move on to the general Q&A. But as a real quick introduction, James is a client of ours and been a really good support of our business for probably nearly a couple of years now. What I'd want to take the opportunity to do today was just actually talk to somebody real about kind of how Amazon works in their business, how it works for them, what role it plays in their strategy, almost in a live way. So I think, James, thank you and welcome. I think first of all, can I just ask you to tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm head of e-commerce at Furniture Box. We are an online flat pack furniture retailer. We own our own brand. Obviously, that's very relevant to the Amazon conversation. And our sort of growth and our strategy since COVID has been the expansion of marketplaces and that whole multi-channel element of the business, while also still maintaining a focus on our own website. The growth, a large part of the growth, has been powered by the marketplace improvements and increase in focus on that marketplace. So yeah, we're sort of dedicated to that more than perhaps other brands might have otherwise been.
So you said that interesting word, multi-channel. It sounds like you're in many marketplaces, James. Sorry,
Sorry.
like you got somebody breaking into your meeting.
It's the door. It's very creaky. Sorry about that.
I did wonder if somebody just dropped some furniture on their foot as that happened. Sorry, you said they're multi-channel. So can you tell us a bit about what channels are you in? And obviously you D2C and Amazon, but it sounds like you're in many different places.
Yeah, we are. So we're selling 13 different channels now. So obviously our own website, Amazon, eBay, Mano, OnBuy, all the UK marketplaces you'd expect. But then also we have that kind of B2B relationship with people like Wayfair or Robert Dias or The Range. So yeah, Amazon's a small part of our strategy, but it is an important part of the strategy. And all of those channels kind of feed into that idea of get your product in front of as many eyeballs as possible.
Brian, I suspect that you might actually start to answer where I was going with my next question. It's kind of why do you sell, and I might broaden this up actually, why have you gone for a multi-marketplace strategy? Why did COVID change that? And then in particular, why do you sell on Amazon?
Yeah, so the marketplace strategy is really driven by, like I just said, that idea that you get your product and you get your brand in front of more people, as Nick already briefly touched on, and as you did too, Andy. Amazon is a very powerful part of the customer's journey to finding your brand. And if you don't exist on Amazon, and to Nick's point, if your product isn't on Amazon, does it really exist? That genuinely is where we find ourselves now. I believe, obviously, that 56% you put up at the start as well, Andy, that rings very true to us. And so although Amazon might only be our fourth biggest channel in terms of turnover, actually, if somebody finds us on Amazon and then comes to our website or comes to a Wayfair listing or however else they might find us, that initial part of their journey, if they didn't find us on Amazon, would they have found us at all? So the strategy is very much just put the product in as many places as we can. And yes, that might lead to a small amount of cannibalization, but ultimately, as long as we get the sale, we've got the sale. And that's the goal. And I think brands and retailers will spend a lot of time arguing about whether Amazon is worthwhile because of that cannibalization piece. But actually, I think what you need to take away from that is that if you weren't there in the first place to get that cannibalization, would you have got the sale at all? And that's such an important piece of this journey.
That's a really good point, Jonathan. When we talk about cannibalization, people look quite often at will I steal my own sales, where actually what's more important to me is whose sales can I steal on Amazon where they would have bought somebody else's product.
Yeah, that's the other part of the pie, isn't it? Is that you might be able to get your Amazon listing to be a bestseller on Amazon. How many sales are you going to take from your competitors that you stole that from? And that's another part of the strategy.
Yeah. Great shout. One of the things I'm quite intrigued by is you're quite a young, energetic business. You know, obviously I know a bit more about you than most people that are listening, but you've got young founders, you're really energetic, you're still relatively early stage. Do you think that consideration about cannibalization and that mindset of we just grab the sale right now, will that change, do you think, as the business evolves and grows? Will profitability by channel come more into play? And do you think that will change your view?
I don't think so, no. I think the profitability by channel might come into it. So we might start having a preference to sell on one channel over the other, but I don't think that will change the overall strategy of being involved in as many places as we can. As the brand grows and more people become aware of us, what that will naturally do is tend people to start doing branded searches for our brand. So instead of going to Amazon and starting your journey on Amazon, you might just go to Google and type in furniture box. That's great for us. So I don't see why that strategy would change unless something radical happens, which none of us can foresee the future, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the strategy will remain as it is.
Brilliant. I think one of the things, James, that's always intrigued me about your business is you sell large, bulky items. In a past life, I used to kind of work in a furniture business, and shifting ugly freight via two-man carriers was the bane of my life. Even when you did that with a D2C website and a customer service team and some of the better carriers in the market. So going right back to the whole context of the conversation today, what role does Amazon have in your e-commerce strategy? Many people selling large, bulky, non-parcelable items would pretty much go none. And kind of move away from that. Why did Amazon feel like a natural place to go to, even given the fact that that's probably quite a significant challenge to get over? You can't FBA it, you can't prime it. Well, you can, but you can't.
Yeah, and I think you've kind of answered the question in the question. The very fact that people don't want to do it opens up an opportunity for us, right? So if you've got larger brands that don't want to muddy the water by getting involved in Amazon and going through the work that it does take to set up, a sensible Amazon store with sensible delivery methods and sensible lead times, you're not disappointing the customer, you're not angering Amazon, all of that stuff does take time. But because not many brands are willing to do that, that opens up an opportunity for us to jump in there with a team that can support that structure, and obviously working with an agency like VentureForge. That opens up an opportunity that's larger than it would have been if every other brand in the world would have been doing Amazon. So yeah, the answer's in the question.
And have you possibly answered the next question I was going to ask you, which is, what role does Amazon International have? Because then I'm immediately thinking, now you've got to ship this stuff into Europe, and that's another hurdle. But I'm guessing that's part of your driver, isn't it? If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Precisely. Yeah. It's the opportunity that opens up, but also, and I think Nick touched on this as well, there's an opportunity to use Amazon as a sort of testing the water type scenario, where we can list in Germany on a very MVP approach, list a very small number of products, use FBA in Germany, see what the market does with your product, see what products will be more popular in the different territories. You can do the same in the US, same in Canada, same in Scandinavia, same in New Zealand if you wanted to. You can use it as a tester for how that product might be received in those markets. And then if that product's received very well, there's your strategy. So you're kind of using Amazon as we call it internally, we talk about our MVP approach a lot, but that's kind of how we do it. So we'll take 10 products, we'll stick it on a marketplace, we'll see what it does. If 5 of those products hit, then we know that's the strategy that we need to take more of those product types that have sold well and grow that marketplace with those products. And it's the same with the territories.
Perfect. And are you at a position, James, where you can share a bit more about your international plans? I think it was a press release went out, so something doesn't feel overly sensitive. But where are you looking next with Amazon, and what's on the agenda for you?
Yeah, I mean, our growth has primarily been driven by UK, but we've tried Germany, we've got some success in Germany, but we've seen that the US market has really been the kind of golden egg for us. The US market has responded incredibly well to our stuff, and we to be fair, we weren't really expecting it to. Our design is quite modern and quite specific, and often that doesn't work in the US, but it has taken off in the US. So the focus for us now is basically entirely US.
That's really interesting. It's going back to that first thing that we talked about at the beginning, let the data do the talking. You could have said no, you could have not tried it. You've actually got some proof in the pudding, and now you've got potentially a 10 times the UK size opportunity to go after with, sounds like, very minimal product rework needed because the range is resonating in that market.
Yeah, exactly so.
Fantastic. Good stuff. I feel quite safe asking this next question, since you've already alluded to working with us. But one of the questions I want to ask you, you've chosen to work with VentureForge to accelerate the UK business. What helped you make that decision to work with an agency rather than taking it on yourself directly? What kind of was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons why we decided to do it and why I think it's a good idea as part of an Amazon strategy. Number one, working with an agency that's done this before, you don't have to find an Amazon channel manager on LinkedIn or wherever you're going to go search for it. You don't have to recruit somebody that knows Amazon inside and out. You're working with an agency that already knows it inside and out. So you can lean on their experience to learn things that you otherwise would not have learned without trial and error. So your learnings and the speed at which you learn and improve is massively accelerated by using an agency. Secondly, you guys as an agency will have access to data and to campaigns and people within Amazon that a brand just won't normally get access to. You'll know a lot more about what Amazon are planning before a brand will. So that's really helpful. And number 3, and I think this is probably the most important one for us, you guys will have access to tools that have enormous subscription costs that we don't have to then pay. We outsource that to the agency spends that fee once, we don't have to. So the money saving that you will have by not having to have the billion different Amazon apps that you have to plug in to get access to this data, you're allowing somebody else to take on that cost. And then they're the ones that will deliver the findings from those reports. So that was a large part of it for us, but I do think that the knowledge part of it is also very important.
I feel like you've been sat in my office this week, James, watching me do the budgeting from what you've just said there. But no, I think it's really good points. I'm conscious we've got about 6 minutes left and people will have kind of hard stops at the end. What I'd like to do now is just jump into the questions that we've got coming in and just have a very, very quick fire run through these. I want to tackle it from the top down in terms of how many people vote for the question. We'll go first with one that's coming from Adam and bring you back into this at this point, Nick, as well. I'm smiling as I read this, as I'm sure you probably will be, guys. How does a smaller supplier get face-to-face contact? I assume that means with Amazon. Currently, we go through automated routes, no fixed contact, etc., etc. We would like to try build ongoing relationships. I'm smiling off this, guys, because for me, it's probably a blunt Yorkshire expression. It's suck it up. That is unfortunate the way in which Amazon works, particularly for a small supplier. For me, you just have to embrace that, accept it, move on. I'll throw the obvious agency angle on this, and partnering with an agency can shortcut some of that. We do have direct Amazon contact. James and Nick, any other thoughts on that one? But I saw your smiles arise as I read the question as well.
Well, the first answer is yours. Good luck. The other one is you will find that Amazon will come and they'll find you. Once you start becoming a player in whatever sector, whichever category you're in, your phone will ring. They keep ringing me, and I'm not even a contact. I haven't even worked for one of these businesses for 4 years. So keep contacts up to date, and they will eventually speak to you, I'm sure. There isn't an easy answer to it because, yeah.
There's not, no.
I would agree.
All righty, thank you, gents. Let's jump on to the next one. One in from Sarah. Does Amazon have to be a pure sales driver, or can I use it to grow brand awareness or as an acquisition tool? Any of you gents want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of already answered that in the questions anyway. I think that you can use Amazon for both. It doesn't have to be a pure sales driver, as Nick said in his presentation too. It doesn't have to be. It can be a brand awareness tool. It can be an acquisition tool. The important thing is that if you're going to use it as a brand awareness tool, as an acquisition tool, you need to be the owner of the brand. And as Nick showed in his presentation, one of the supplements that he showed, the SERP in Google will show a different brand to his brand. So it's really important, if you are going to use it as a brand awareness or an acquisition tool, you have to own the brand, you have to control the listing. And if you don't, then you're wasting time. Like, don't even bother.
Great. Thank you very much, James. We'll jump down now onto Jake's question. Is there any way to know how much sales my competitors are doing on Amazon? Yes, for me is a short answer to that. I think that's part of the beauty of Amazon world and looking at all that data and context I talked about early on. Lots of tools, lots of things we have access to as an agency, lots of things you can do yourself. You have some great tools like Jungle Scout, AMZ Scout, Helium 10. The free versions of those products give you some good insight to start with. But yeah, absolutely, you can pretty much work out what volume, what value, what sales mix, and build a strategy to unpick that and take that away from competitors. James, Nick, anything you want to add to that?
No, Jungle Scout, I would say is a good starting point if you don't know what you do. Not that you don't know what you're doing, but you want a starting point. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm really flying through this. I'm conscious of the time. I've got a question from Alwyn. For brands who want to maximize the potential of Amazon, do you think a hybrid 1P, 3P or seller vendor approach is the only way that they can achieve this? Gents, any thoughts from you? I've got a few thoughts, but
No, I mean, for us, we effectively operate in that model. So we will have SFP listings, so seller fulfilled home listings, and FBA listings that will exist as part of our Amazon strategy, and then we'll have our own 1P approach for all of our distribution. Again, large furniture items, we can't FBA those anyway. We can bodge them in SFP if we wanted, but we don't really. We just offer a longer lead time on those products, and that's fine. So the important thing with that strategy, I think, is that your Amazon metrics, things like your VTR, your value tracking rate, they have to be absolutely on point. Otherwise, your listing is going to go bye-bye. So yeah, you absolutely can do a 1P, 3P approach. You've just got to manage it well.
Yeah, I think from my side, it's something that a lot of our clients do for very, very different reasons. Sometimes 1P is used because it works well for their operating model. 3P can be used to accelerate sales and drive volume into 1P further down the line. I think, Alan, the honest answer from my point of view is there is no right or wrong answer, but more and more of our clients are going down a hybrid route because strategically the two things can be used together quite advantageously.
Yeah, and also the 3P approach allows you to get into other territories that you wouldn't normally sell into. So, yeah, I think a hybrid approach is the best idea, as you said. But I think, yeah, just got to manage it well.
I was going to say, just for anybody who doesn't know, do you two want to just say what 1P, 3P, and SFP and whatever else you said was?
Yeah, there's quite a few acronyms in there. For me, yeah, what 1P is Amazon vendor, where you're selling to Amazon. Amazon buys that stock and then they sell that to the consumer. 3P is Amazon seller. You're selling through the Amazon platform to the end customer, and you can pretty much sell what you want down that method. SFP that James described there is seller fulfilled Prime. That's doing Amazon Prime, but from your own warehouse. I think that was the three we've got in there, Nick. I don't think we missed any.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
That's 11:30, gentlemen. I'm very, very thankful, first of all, to everybody who's joined us today. It's been great to see so many people on the call, so many people asking questions. As always, thankful to you guys for your time. James and Nick, it's been really appreciated. Some great content and some great questions answered there, so thank you for that. Two final points. Big thank you to my team that have helped organise this today. It wouldn't be possible without you guys, so thank you for all of that. And it goes without saying, if anybody wants to kind of delve deeper into this, ask any questions or follow up afterwards, we're at ventureforge.co.uk. If anyone wants to ask me directly, it's andy@ventureforge.co.uk. I'll be following up immediately after today with a copy of the webinar. If anyone wants to follow up with any questions, I'm sure if there's anything specific for James or Nick, we can point questions in their directions in the background. But yeah, once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we hope to see you on the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.